The demand for justice have saturated the atmosphere and disquieted some good people of conscience who are not comfortable and happy as they see and watch justice being perverted, especially in Nigeria, involving the case of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu.
I want to use this opportunity to appreciate Nigerians for their support since I released the first video yesterday about free Nnamdi Kanu protest. This protest is born out of sincerity and honesty, with the display of shame and disgrace that happened in Katsina last week. We all know that for years Nnamdi Kanu has been in detention. And as I'm talking to you, Nnamdi Kanu is having and he's battling with health challenges even while in prison. But it's rather unfortunate with the display of shame and disgrace that happened in Katsina by the bandit commander. The question we ask, do we have a country? The question we need to ask, do we have a nation? The question we need to ask, do we have a constitution? And if we have a constitution, then as Nigerians, we need to ask ourselves and ask the federal government question, why the double standard? If the bandit commander can come and address Nigeria like schoolboys and address Nigeria by threatening Nigerians, by killing one of the headers, that he will kill more Hausas and Northerners, and he is moving freely, why should Nnamdi Kanu should still be in prison? The question I ask, why the double standard? And it is a question that every Nigerian should be asking. Double standards by the federal government of Nigeria. And that is why the call for one Nigeria, one voice protest is born out of sincerity and honesty, equity and justice for all Nigeria citizens. One Nigeria, one voice protest. One Nigeria, one voice protest.
The echo of justice, the echo of demand for justice vibrating from the not just within the eastern region, but across the northern part of the country, who have seen that what is meted to Nnamdi Kanu is nothing but injustice. How could a notorious bandit kingpin be pardoned, even compensated, romanced, and being considered for peace talk by the federal government of Nigeria, while Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, who has been subjected to rigorous litigations and a case determined that discharged and acquitted the innocent, and yet being held behind the bars in DSS dungeon for donkey years. These have raised concerns, and people of good conscience are beginning to ask, is that a country? If that is what is being expressed today, then we don't have a country. Where is the place of the rule of law? Where is the place of justice, equity, and fairness? Do we have a country? Do we have a constitution? What does the constitution stipulate? Is there any adherence to these constitutions? It appears to be we are running a different country with different laws applicable to different people and regions. It is quite unfortunate. And these have raised concerns. Now, the voice and echoes of justice, of demand for equity, fairness, and the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is gaining momentum across the Sahara regions, across outside the country, Nigeria, demanding that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu should be released. There is no justification under any circumstances for the continued incarceration of Nnamdi Kanu, who do not deserve such cruelty, such treatment, of course, by virtue of the current incidents and realities. Being worried how a man could threaten the Hausa communities to kill them more if he is provoked. What is the basis of his provocations? Who is standing on his way? What are their agitation in the first instance for killing people at the mosques, for murdering the farmers, the communities, adopting them and raping them? These are people who deserve, of course, to face the full wrath of the law. The law should have its course, but sadly, the government is romancing them into peace talk, dialogue with terrorists, people who has inflicted injury, not just injury, death, on Nigerian citizens, are being considered for peace talk, are being considered for certain monetary incentives to disengage in their criminal act. What exactly was their demand? What are they pursuing? These are notorious elements known as terrorists under the name bandit. It is quite unfortunate. The Northerners is now calling for protest against this injustice, a peaceful one for that matter, that we cannot remain in a country where there is abuse of rights, the fundamental right of people from a particular session. We can't keep quiet because definitely what goes around comes around. Today is Nnamdi Kanu, and nobody is talking. Sadly, even from the eastern region, they seem to have lost totally their voice for whatever reason. We don't understand. It is quite unfortunate. The politicians, the senators, the House of Representatives from the eastern region are watching whilst all these things are playing out. They are watching as Aldo Alero, one of the bandit kingpin, threatening the Nigerian government, threatening the Nigerian government, threatening the communities that if he's being provoked, he will continue the killings. You can imagine the audacity, the effrontery against a sovereign state, and yet the government is falling in parley, in romance with such group of people. Where there is a place of law, this is the demand. If equity, justice must be served, then Nnamdi Kanu does not deserve a day of court in DSS dungeon, having called for protests in solidarity for the release of Nnamdi Kanu in the interest of justice and fairness. This is quite commendable, and this have received several commendations and support across the regions of this country. That if this continues, then definitely we have a country. There may not be a place to call a country where justice is selective, where even criminals, even Nnamdi Kanu has not lifted a pin against any Nigerian citizen. Nnamdi Kanu, but here comes a notorious bandit kingpin, bragging, having, of course, rounded himself with magazines and the peace talk. He is ready to continue the massacre and have threatened the Nigerian government. Even of recent, Gumi have said that the Nigerian government should apply caution. Otherwise, these people might be provoked again. You begin to wonder, where is the military strength? Where is the military intelligence? Does it only apply to the eastern people? The marching order of the president, is it only being invoked in the eastern region, such as Okwama, the same marching order the president gave to the military over Okwama innocent communities who weren't involved in the massacre of the military personnel? But the oil moguls, merchants did, by the virtue that it was done within the community, eventually the community suffered colossal loss of life and properties. In fact, everything was leveled down. The same marching order was given against these assailants and the killers of the innocent worshippers at the mosque. Yet it ended up romancing the same terrorists. And they are so emboldened to challenge the federal government and to die them of grave consequences. This is quite surprising, well, but not shocking to us who understood what has been played out. What exactly does this mean? The implication, the security implication of this, that these Nigerian citizens do no longer have security. Perhaps their security is predicated on how much this terrorist kingpin could be pacified or how much they could lobby for them to retreat. One of them threatened that the military should not dare to come closer to their camps, which means they have established camps and they are threatening. See, don't come near our camps. These are within Nigeria. What kind of country are we running? What kind of system are we running that terrorists, bandits have the boldness to tell the federal government of Nigeria, don't near our camp, don't come near, don't try us. But these are the same people who has been hunting Gentle de Yahoo, one of the commanders of the Biafran volunteer force. You can imagine this, seeking all means to get him down, and it's been alleged, of course, that he has been killed. And though we've not gotten details of that, but there could be possibility of that because Nigeria, everything is possible. It is possible to free the assailants, the killers of the innocent worshippers at the mosques, while you go after the people who were demanding for their own independent state, just as the Boko Haram are demanding, of course, for an Islamic state. The Duduwas are demanding for Oduduwa nation, and they have not been impounded on. They have not been killed and massacred. It is quite unfortunate. I expected that the military should have swung into action immediately. The president gave a marching order to go after these assailants. Could it be the more you look, the less you see as far as Nigeria is concerned? One shouldn't have expected that in the first instance. Where on earth will a sovereign state be having a peace talk with bandit kingpin, people who have killed, assaulted, displaced communities within your defined territorial sovereignty, and yet are telling you we have established our base, our camps in your so-called defined territory, and you dare not approach those camps. Don't come nearer. Otherwise, we will threaten you with fire to burn down the country. You can imagine a situation where a terrorist kingpin is threatening to burn down Nigeria if being provoked. What a world, what a country that leaves doubts and, of course, worry in the the hearts of Nigerians. What exactly is happening? Could it be said that some certain vested interest has already sold out Nigeria to undisclosed entities? What is giving them the effrontery, the guts to dare the federal government of Nigeria, even the defense headquarters, the military, the security apparatus of the states? Wow, this is very disturbing development. But there could be more to this than we can see because the public are not privy to certain informations, what exactly is happening. And these people are more emboldened than ever before. That is quite a very disturbing and ugly development. Sadly, the same people from the East calling for the head of Igwe Butuzo, the head of Gentle the Yahoo, are not seeing this romance, this peace talk with bandit kingpin terrorists with Nigerian governments. They are not condemning that. They consider that as part of normalcy, and it doesn't bother them. The lies they have heard and listening to them, condemning Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, calling Mazen Nnamdi Kanu criminal, a man who has been discharged and acquitted by the Nigerian court of law, a man who has been tried, subjected under the Nigerian court of law, and an appellate court of law has ruled in his favor. Mazen Nnamdi Kanu has not less than 3 verdicts ruled in his favor in Nigeria court of law. And yet the federal government failed to comply with those court verdicts, court rulings within the Nigerian legal system. They tried him. At the end of the day, they came out with their verdict, with their findings, that the Nigerian government has no any evidence or could not prove their allegations against Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. The same Mazen Nnamdi Kanu is being held behind the bars. Yet some Eastern politicians are calling for him to be crucified at all costs. It doesn't matter what the court says. What matters is their interests must be protected. The fact that the Mazen Nnamdi Kanu ever-growing population threatens their political relevance and existence. It is quite unfortunate how selfish some persons could be, that an innocent should be sacrificed at the altar of sacrifice, at the altar of protecting your selfish political interests against what is acceptable, what the law have expressed, that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu is innocent. His continued trial suggests, of course, the compliance of the federal government to the rule of law and justice. Very unfortunate indeed. This young northern personality has raised this concern that if the Eastern people, the governors, even the masses are not speaking, the likes of the DOS, they are not speaking, rather romancing with the governors and the politicians of the Eastern people. They have not shown any sign of commitment to demand for justice. This is what the law says. This is what the court of law says. The late Buhari said he's not going to interfere with the court proceedings. And thereafter, decisions was made by the court. Why not compliance? Why is the federal government afraid of the release of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, but feel comfortable having a parley, a peace talk with a deadly assailants, people who has killed, murdered, destroyed communities? They have fed their own victims, the baby of their victims, to their own dogs, yet they are being considered worthy of acceptance, worthy to be accommodated within the defined territories of Nigeria. They could cohabit with the Nigerian state and the government. They could be running their own separate governments without any interference, warning the defense headquarters, the armies, not to interfere with their programs and within the defined territories happening across the regions of the country. Sokoto is being reported that 10 local government falls under the control of these assailants, of these people. The same thing, Borno, Katsina, Zamfara, and the rest of them. These are part of the territories defined as Nigeria, yet there are parallel governments being run, instituted in all these regions. Yet, the government is busy romancing from one state to the other, romancing these people. And you know what it implies? As Erufai, Ahmed Dati have accused the government of enrolling them. They are being backrolled by the federal government. They are receiving allowances. You know, there could not be peace talk without any exchange, any compromise. And yet these people are daring. They have the audacity, the effrontery to challenge the federal government of Nigeria, and yet people are watching helplessly. It's an affront to the Igbo communities, to the Igbo race, and the rest of them. As many people have expressed, if this were to be Sunday Igbo, Toji Bello, Ado Alero, who are now celebrated as celebrities in their own communities. You see them, communities coming out, trooping out in their thousands, celebrating them, eulogizing them, and the rest of them. You begin to ask, should this happen in the eastern region? Of course, genocide, another genocide would have taken place. There would have been sporadic shooting, of course, and order to shoot at sight. But that is not the case with the northern people. Ọ bụ gịnị ka ndị Igbo mere Tinubu? Ọ bụ gịnị ka ndị Igbo mere Yoruba? Ọ bụ gịnị ka ndị Igbo mere ọchịchị Nigeria? These are questions we must begin to ask. That is what the law says, that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is innocent. Why is Tinubu keep Mazi Nnamdi Kanu behind the bars? Even after all these court injunctions, court ruling is not a suggestion, and yet he's busy negotiating with terrorists, pardoning terrorists, having peace deal with the terrorists and the rest of them. For me, it's an embarrassment and insult on the entire existence of the Igbo people. Now, the Igbo has remained silent over all this. Now, an Hausa man is taking the lead, demanding for a protest to be organized for the release of Nnamdi Kanu over what he considers as injustice, shared wickedness being meted on the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. But it is a very disturbing development, honestly. A very disturbing development indeed. Does it mean that the eastern region does not deserve any peace deal or accord? They don't deserve to be listened to hear their own grievances. This is quite very unfortunate. The cycle of viciousness will definitely continue unless challenged. So these people deserve the right for explanation of whatever is going on. Well, if they so desire, if not, it's quite unfortunate and very disturbing and shameful that the people leading, demanding for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu are co-northerners, are people from the north. Very unfortunate, honestly. The Fulanese, they know how to survive in Nigeria. When it involves Badejo, the president of the Mieti Allah, they never begged for one day for the release of Badejo. They demanded, they threatened the Nigerian government. And eventually the Attorney General had no option and to withdraw the count charges against Badejo. They said their own son should not be held behind bars. under any circumstances, he have done nothing wrong, despite the allegations levied against him by the federal government. This one, court has not decided his innocency, yet they demanded that such case should be discontinued and bandage be released without any stringent condition attached to that. But here is the case of Nnamdi Kanu. The court has decided his case and find out he is not guilty, yet he's been held behind the bars. And the Igbos are keeping quiet. The politicians want him dead under incarceration. You can imagine two scenarios, two different peoples with two different actions. Let's have a own take regarding this development. It's quite a very disturbing case. But then, let's see how justice will be buried in the case of Nnamdi Kanu. Let's have your own take on this subject matter. Thanks for watching.